and welcome to the Meg Method podcast, the podcast that aims to help you move, think, and feel better so you can do more of what you love with the people you love. And this is our first major marathon top-up episode for 2025. And what a race to start on is the Tokyo Marathon. And I have got the man, the myth, the legend, the real-life Mr. Motivator, Mr. David Yim. Welcome.
Hi Meg, how are you doing? What an introduction. Thank you.
I've been practicing. We've had a little break since New York. The energy is up.
It's been a while since we've done a top-up episode. I think it was New York last time.
It was.
I'm getting myself ready to go out there, and I am wearing my New York Marathon top just for you.
I know. Look at you in your bright orange. I look like I'm dressed for a funeral. I can't be doing the fights in the merch store, Yimmy. I haven't got as much as you, right?
Hey, we'll get on to talking about fights in merch stores when we come and talk about the Tokyo Marathon.
If there is any place to talk about fights over merch, it is the Tokyo Marathon, and we'll be talking about that. So for those new to the podcast, I'm Meg Walker. I'm an endurance athlete and also a fitness and health coach who helps coach others through similar endurance endeavors. And we've got the self-titled short fat guy who runs the majors, David Yim, who is soon to be a second time World Major Marathon finisher. He's got his fingers crossed there, but he doesn't need it. Give us a little insight how that's going, Yumi.
It's going great, Meg. As you know, or some people who've listened to previous episodes will know, I'm doing my 12 marathons in 12 months challenge, all for Young Lives versus Cancer. I'm a charity runner. Yeah. I am a short, fat, middle-aged man who can run a bit. I'm not the fastest. I'm not the slowest. And I took on this challenge starting last year in London, finishing in London this year. I'm 8 marathons in. Can you believe it? I did 8 marathons last year.
I can believe it.
And I've got the 4 booked this year. So Tokyo is my next one, followed by Rome. And I've been listening to that Rome episode, Meg, to get the real insights on what's going on in Rome. Then I fly to Boston and run the Boston Marathon and get hopefully my 6th star there. And then finally coming into London and do my victory lap. But I have said to some others as well that I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment, Meg. Mm-hmm. I've only gone and signed up to run Berlin again this year.
Can't help. You are a Berlin major marathon fan. You just cannot resist. You get a little whisper, a little tease, and there goes that credit card.
Do you know what? It was because Lydia, my running partner, she couldn't run it last year because she was injured. And I promised I'd run it with her. And I rang her up and just before Christmas and said, so what's the deal with Berlin? Are you running it? Because I said I would run it with you. And she says, yeah, I'm all signed up. And I thought, oh, okay. And this is after I had already booked my flights without knowing that I'd actually got a place in the Sydney Marathon.
Wow.
So I'm doing the 4 marathons to finish this challenge. Then it's Sydney in August.
He's going down
then 2 weeks later I'm doing Berlin. So, one of these years I'm going to end up being able to go, you know what, I'm just going to do 1 marathon this year. And my wife's already picked me up on this. And she said to me, what about London? You do London every year. And I said, oh, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So now it's turned into... now it's London. That's a free pass.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's London plus 1 maybe from 2026. I can't promise. That's my aim, my intention.
Everybody knows that London doesn't count, Gwen. Come on. You need to change your handle. You're gonna have to be short fat guy doesn't stop running the majors.
I can't help it. It's the occasion of it all. I love it. It's brilliant. It's really good fun.
It's incurable, everybody. He's seen the doctor. There's no help for him. There's no help for him. But today we are all about Tokyo, though. We're very excited to talk about it. It was important for us to talk about it because the last full episode we did on Tokyo, Yimi was sharing his race day experience. I hadn't run it yet. And Yimi had titled it The Silent Disco. He'd run just after COVID. lots of restrictions in place, very little crowd. So there I go, fly out to Japan, ready for this silent disco. And it literally couldn't have been more opposite. There was no silent about it. It was full on disco. Everybody out there. I've never seen a race where the supporters are in more costumes than the people. It was amazing, and they were so loud, and I am so very impressed. So Yumi and I always want to keep you up to date on the information. We want to be real about our thoughts and comments. So we thought it was important to give Tokyo Marathon the love and respect it deserves. And you're actually excited. You're going to be flying out to run it again very shortly, aren't you? And you are
Oh,
open to a different experience.
5 weeks away is the race. I'm flying out there a week before. I know we're going to talk about just getting out there early, but just on your point, I remember when we talked about this last time, the 3 words, and I'm interested to hear what your 3 words are, because my 3 words at the time were clean, quiet, and compliant. And as soon as the race had been done, I know you texted me and said, "Wow, what a great experience!" And I was watching your posts, and Rich Loud, who I know you saw there, who got his 6th star in Tokyo last year, very good friend of mine. We ran Tromsø together. We ran Amsterdam together. 2 of my marathons out of my 8 that I ran last year, and he was my big support crew in New York as well. So big shout out to Rich Loud. He said to me, "Oh wow, the crowd were really there. They turned it up."
Yeah. I was so impressed, so impressed. So if I had 3 words, efficient, most definitely has got to be in there. Very efficient. I would say authentic as well. I love like such a different culture. They're very like so much thought have gone into things. See, if I'm going to go opposite to your experience, I would say loud. It was super loud. Like, I'm trying to think authentic is one, and then maybe I'm going to go with thoughtful, actually. Thoughtful. I thought there was a lot of thought put into a race. There was lots of thought put into the costume, the designs, thoughts into like the entertainment with the culture. And if you are going to Japan and get to experience it, like so, like even like the thought of inventions and things, they thought of things that you didn't even know you needed, right? So that's how I'm going to sum that up with thoughtful. Whether that's the right word, I don't know. So I'm going to go with efficient, authentic, and thoughtful.
Wow. Okay.
And I would say thoughtful as well, because I met so many thoughtful people, thoughtful runners that really were looking out for each other during the race. They were thoughtful and staying within the applying to the rules, right? Because Japan, they do like their rules. It's very much part of their culture, and I think people were very thoughtful towards that, and just really looked out for each other during the race. So I'm going to say thoughtful is the one to sum all of that up, to be honest.
Nice.
And I'm also super thoughtful, which I was telling you, Yumi, about, and you loved that, the amount of people that literally were finding me in toilets in different provinces and cities, in elevators, crossing the road in attractions to say, and during the race to say that they'd listened to the podcast and how much they appreciated the advice. So for anyone running this year, I hope you can track Yumi down, maybe leave him alone in the toilet. You can track him down. We always love to see you. It makes our day when you come give us a cuddle. We kind of put this out into the black void. And there's nothing better than actually getting to meet your faces, hear about your stories, experiences. And we hope that anyone running this year, it can be helpful to you. So the aim of today's episode is to give you some up-to-date, informative and impactful information for this year's race. And if you want to hear about that silent disco episode that Yimi shares his experience, you can go to episode 138 of the Meg Method podcast. If you are a slow runner and particularly worried about cutoff times, then I did a whole solo episode on this, so listen to episode 150. And if you are planning to travel Japan afterwards or like lots of details about sightseeing, the culture, I put all of my anecdotes and tips from my own trip in episode 172. So I will link them all in the episode description. But let's get to this year's race, which is taking place on Sunday, the 2nd of March. Now, I wanted to start off talking a little bit about travel for Japan. Now, a lot of you, your flights are going to be booked and fixed, but if anyone's listening to this and planning to do it in the future, I know Yumi and I are on the same page with this. It's definitely one of the majors to try get that out there earlier if you can and give yourself a few extra days in terms of jet lag.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You lose time when you fly west to east. I used to do it a lot with work, and my business travel, tips were, make sure you sleep strategically. I said this in the main episode, but if you look at the time you're going to land, and if you're landing in the morning, sleep as much as you can on the plane on the way out, and then stay awake all day as long as you can. I was landing in the evening, so I was actually very strategic about the way that I actually looked at my sleep needs on the plane, and I limited myself to 5 hours, even though it was a 13-hour flight. And the reason why I did that was so that when I got there in the evening, I would be tired by the time I got to my hotel. Yes, I went to bed a bit later, but it meant that I could tune into Tokyo time, and it's 9 hours ahead at the moment, so that's a significant loss of time. Yep. And it can be quite discombobulating. I think is a great word to use for that. But you had some other technology help with this as well. I was blown away.
I did. So I came across the Time Shifter app. We're not sponsored by it. I never used it before, and your first trip is free, so you could literally download it and use it for free for Tokyo. So it's basically an app where you can put in the place that you're traveling to and when, and it will give you a plan to help you with jet lag based on, I guess, the time that you wake up, etc. Now, I didn't follow it to an absolute T, but it was actually quite useful to have a little look at it, and things that I hadn't really thought about, of like when to wear sunglasses, etc., based on like light exposure to make yourself more awake or more tired. So something that's free and you can have a little glance at. I actually found it really helpful. As I said, I didn't follow it to a T, but it was free to download, and actually was quite useful just to follow along, and I really didn't experience that bad jet lag. So whether that was just a good plan, speaking with you and thinking that well in advance, or just a mix as well of some of that advice. So that's something I would say. Now, in terms of flights, you can fly into Haneda or Narita Airport. I personally flew into Haneda. Which airport did you fly into, Yumi?
Haneda. It's closer. It's much closer to the city centre.
Exactly. Now, one of literally the best tips I could possibly give you about getting to the airport, it saved me so much time and was so easy to do, to make the immigration process quick and easy. You can go to the Visit Japan Web Digital Services website, and you can actually fill in your immigration form early. You did the same, I believe, yeah?
No, I didn't. I mean, that was the year I went in 23, just after COVID. In fact, they were still talking about COVID and people were still wearing masks. And there was none of that option, because everyone had to do the whole temperature test thing and keep 2 weeks worth of records. And I'm so glad that's gone away now, because that was the stress of just getting there, and all the admin that you had to fill out this particular card, and you had to download an app which then went green when you'd filled it all in, and there was the processing through immigration just took forever. So this sounds like an absolute dream. Top tip, Meg.
Literally one of my top tips. So that's Visit Japan Web Digital Services. If I can link it somehow, I will put it in the link. I know I put it in the travel tips episode. I think it wasn't linking well. Someone sent me a message, but I'll do that. And basically you do your immigration. You can do your immigration paperwork online before you get there. So skipped all that queues, got to show it, and went right through. It was so easy. Again, what that will be like when you get there, if there's a lot of people doing that, I don't know, but it was so quick and easy. And just a pro tip, because this is the sort of thing I would like to know when traveling, I packed protein powder and porridge oats in my hand luggage, so I had that for my breakfast, and there was no issues at customs. So that might be a question that people want answered. Once you get through the airport and you want transport, you've got taxis, they're the most expensive option. You've got the limo bus, that's the most popular. You do need to pre-book that option, but think about it's not going to drop you exactly at your hotel. So you're then going to have to navigate the last little bit. I personally did the train, and one of the reasons I did that is not only cheaper, but I just wanted to familiarize myself with the rail system as early as possible. But again, you've got to think where you're at in terms of tiredness and jet lag. I know, Yimi, you just got straight in the taxi, right? Big bucks.
It was more line of least resistance.
Yeah.
It was I was 9 hours ahead of where I should have been in my body. I was tired from coming off the plane. I'd had all that stress in the airport. And I'm normally pretty good. I'm normally get on public transport ASAP. But I got there and I thought, you know what? I just want to get to my hotel and I want to dump my bags, wash my face, maybe have a shower, and then go get some sushi. Those were my priorities, right? So jumped in a taxi, half an hour actually, and pretty reasonable. I think it was about 40 pounds or so I spent in a cab. So just look out for the cost of these things, of course, because it's the most expensive option. But taxi was certainly very, very convenient.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of different options. And again, in that episode done all on travel, I've gone into a little bit more detail on that. There are services available as well where you can send your luggage ahead. And then just travel light with your carry-on bags. I know people who have done it. I didn't use it myself, but it's got a good rep so far. So that's something to think about as well. In terms of travel money, I was advised to bring around 10,000 yen per day. So that's like, and I spent slightly less on average. So I wasn't really going out for all of my meals. I was mainly doing a big dinner and then doing more convenient stuff, but 10,000 yen per day was about that. I don't know what average you were spending, Yumi.
I'd say slightly more than that, but I would always advise taking some cash because there's still a big cash economy there. And otherwise, as I mentioned on the previous episode, the Suica or Pasmo cards, which are basically like travel cards that you can actually load up, and you can actually download the actual Suica card onto your Apple Wallet if you've got an iPhone, and you just charge it up, and every time you use it, just like you use contactless card, it deducts the amount from the actual account. So that's super convenient. But as I discovered, lots of places to eat, especially the cheap places to eat in Tokyo. There are a lot of these really cute places where you put your cash into the vending machine and you press the button and it gives you a ticket, and there's no card payment there. You roll the note in and it sucks it into the machine. It chucks it out a couple of times because you need to like uncrease it and stuff. But you put it in there, you press the button, and it gives you a ticket. And that's the cheapest way of eating in Tokyo at these little small places, these small outlets. But they only take cash, so just take some cash with you.
Yeah, I would say though a year on, because you gave me that advice going a year later than you, there was a lot more places then I was expecting that were now doing cards. But I would still say on the ratio, I did about 80% in cash. If you're going traveling, that's especially useful in places like Kyoto, which really is very cash heavy, and about 20% digitally, and that was more for transport and convenience stores. That I was being able to do the digital. Like Yumi said, you've got what they call an IC card. It's an integrated circuit card. That's what Yumi's talking about with Suica or Pasmo. You can download that and sort that before you go. And that's particularly useful for trains, vending machines, and some stores. You can use iPhone, like he said, you just use your Apple Wallet. You can use it on your Apple Watch, and you can add that as an express card. Now, rail and subway system, there's 3 major railway companies in Tokyo. You've got JR East, you've got TUI, and Tokyo Metro. Now, as a non-resident, you can buy 24, 48, or 72-hour subway tickets. So that's TUI or Tokyo Metro lines only, not JR. And you just need to bring your passport for identification and check out there's certain train stations where you can do that. I'd really recommend that in the first couple of days that you're in Tokyo. You could save a lot of money, and then bear in mind that as a Tokyo marathon runner, you will get a free 24-hour card. But I would definitely recommend at least buying one of those 24 hours for anyone who is supporting in the marathon, because my mum saved an absolute fortune that day just having that card. So that's just something to think about. Have your passport ready for identification, and it's for non-residents. And then in terms of, we'll talk a little bit at the end about sightseeing, but again, think about geographically. I was really thinking about where I was going in the days and what was close to each other. That also saved me a lot of money, minimizing subway usage as well, because you could just do the Suica or single tickets and you're not going back and forth to all these different places. Internet and connectivity, there was free Wi-Fi really available in Tokyo and other areas, less so in Kyoto. You can, I actually used a data package for my phone. I don't know what you used, Jimmy, with your mobile company.
At the time I was with the mobile company I was with, it was only like $5 a day to use all of my data services. But I have since looked into other data cards that you can use, and you can with the latest phones you can have dual cards and set up an eSIM. Yeah, you set up an eSIM. I actually used it while I was on holiday in December, and it was so easy to use. Basically, you can still WhatsApp and everything on your number, but what it does is it piggybacks off data provider from somebody else, and you can buy lots of different eSIM options are out there. They all work pretty much in the same way, and they link to the strongest network that you're using at the time. So, yeah, I plan to do the same this time round and get an eSIM closer to the date.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of places for Wi-Fi spots. Like I said, you can also, some people buy portable Wi-Fi, but I would say the easiest and most cost-effective way I found is through a phone company package, whether you do dual SIM or the company I was on was £7 a day and capped. So you can cap it so you don't go over a certain amount. So my advice is turn it on. If you're going to use it that day, turn it on as early as possible in the morning and make the use out of the day, because you're going to get that full 24 hours.
I was quite interested to hear you talk about Kyoto and it's less free Wi-Fi in Kyoto, because I'm landing on the Tuesday. I'm planning on going to Osaka and Kyoto on the Wednesday and Thursday, and then coming back to Tokyo, as I did a lot of the stuff in Tokyo last time round. So I'm planning on spending some time, and I've been told Osaka is a place where you go for Kyoto is a place you go for the culture, and Osaka is a place you go for all out sort of entertainment. So I'm looking forward to it.
I completely agree. So I did both, like, worth listening to that. I believe it's 150, that episode I did all about it. But definitely that Osaka, there's not actually loads to see. But you've got obviously the big sort of entertainment street and that to do. Some people go there because they want to go to like Universal, like Nintendo World, etc. But definitely that's something for like the entertainment side, food, and then Kyoto, if you really want to see the traditional Japan, really worth doing. And like a nice mix. Kyoto was absolutely hands down my mum's favorite. I like them both, but definitely more traditional side. So Kyoto for sure, you're definitely going to want more cash, and there's less of those Wi-Fi spots. I would advise there. As we're talking about phones and internet, just quickly, Google Maps will be your best friend in Japan. So literally for subways, buses, trains, Google Maps is far superior to the UK one. You literally can like enter your current location. It's going to show you the train, the amount for it. It's going to show you where to go on the platform to get that's going to be closest to where you want to when you get off. It's going to tell you the number of the train, where it's going to, and then even what exit you want to take the other way.
That is the most important thing, because you go to somewhere like Tokyo Station and it has something like 30 different entrances and exits. And I thought that was, and I think I said it on the last one, the Google Maps was so good. I had City Mapper, and I thought, this is making it so overly complicated. Google Maps was brilliant. And because there's like internet widely available on the entire subway network in the metro network in Tokyo, it was just so easy, and telling you that it's exit number 15 and it's over here in the southwest corner. and you just navigate towards it. And the signage, one thing to look out for in Tokyo is they want to make sure you've got all the information.
Oh yeah, literally.
Right.
It's a bit overwhelming. You just see it's so
you,
neatly done, but it's information overwhelm.
It's in your face, isn't it? I mean, I remember getting off at one of the metro trains, and there's this sign that says like, this exit over here and this exit over here, and if you want to go here, you want to go over here, and this is the exit for this. I mean, and it was like, wow. And you see some of the road signs in Tokyo as well, the electronic road signs that tell you how busy the road is and all of that to look forward to. But as a driver in Japan, you must need to be able to speed read.
Like you would really need to slow down to make your junction, wouldn't you? But when you see it all, it can be overwhelming. If you've got that Google Maps in your hand, really it's helpful. And on that big travel episode, I literally go into it like a dummy's guide of exactly how to read it. Because I know when I first looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness, so much information. When you know what you're looking for, I was teaching a few people I met on the train out there. It really will be your best friend and so easy. What's fun at the train stations, every train station has its own jingle. I don't know if you realise that, you mean?
It's brilliant. Yeah. On one of my videos that I did on my Instagram, on one of my Insta stories, you sit there listening to the jingle, and it's telling you the train's arrived, and this is really relaxing, sort of like quite playful, childlike sort of jingle, and they all have them, and they're all different. So I guess for locals who kind of know what the jingles are, they kind of know where they are, I guess.
Yeah, but far more endearing than the London Underground or
Mind the Gap.
The New York Subway, let's put it that way. So a lot more friendlier. They announce, a lot of the trains will announce in Japanese and English for the stops, not all of them. And then a lot of the electronic machines, especially in Tokyo, again, not so much in places like Kyoto, but a lot of the screens on the train in Tokyo will show it in Japanese and then English.
And then English, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I would point out that, you know, the language barriers are real. It's a real deal out there, and don't assume people can speak English even as a second language, because, you know, there was a real struggle on a few occasions that I found. And I gave this top tip last time round. When you get to your hotel in Tokyo, take a photograph of the business card, they all have them, or go onto Google Maps, find the name of your hotel with the address in Japanese, and just do a screenshot. And if you ever need to ask anyone for directions, or just point, you know, by international language, it's just pointing at your phone and the address, or if you need to get into a taxi, you just show them your phone and they will be able to navigate it, because there's no way that I would be able to pronounce half of these Japanese names with any sort of credibility, and they wouldn't know where to take me. So that's a top tip from me.
And that's also what I do. I really would recommend thinking about having that data on your phone. I'm someone, trust me, if I can go without the data on my phone and just live from Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi, I'm that person. However, in Japan, it is a completely different culture to the other majors. It is not a place where you can there and kind of work out from the road signs where you are from a screenshot. There is Japanese. There is no English there to tell you where you are. So actually having Google Maps where you can follow a route will really, really help you. And then along with that, if you're downloading that package as well, Google Translate will help you massively. And actually, it's just really nice to make that extra effort. I can't tell you how many places me and my mum went into and just took a minute to put a question in Google Translate and then show the Japanese store owner. And they were so happy and so appreciated the effort. So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
There. So let's get on to the Expo. So the Expo is at Tokyo Big Sight South Exhibition Halls, and there are 2 stations close to Big Sight. You can go to Tokyo Big Sight Station, which is the Yuri Kamome line, and then excuse our pronunciation of these in advance. Well, I can only speak for myself, and then the Kokusai Tenjijo station, which is the Ringkaj line. So from Tokyo Big Sight, it's only a 3-minute walk to the front of Tokyo Big Sight, and then from the Kokusai Tenjijo station, it's about 7 minutes. Now you won't miss it when you're there. It looks like something out of the Avengers. It looks like the Avengers headquarters.
That's it.
If you agree, Yumi.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I remember getting there, coming out of the metro station, and you arrive and it just appears. This is amazing building.
It's like a massive up-down triangle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a big upside, like a U-shaped thing, and it's really impressive. Like I said last time round, it blows the London Excel well out of the water from a design perspective. So it's a super impressive building. It's quite imposing. You can't miss it. Steel and glass. You get there and you see all the runners walking towards it. It's like a mecca. All 37,500 marathon runners walking to the same place. But it's actually, interestingly, from my perspective, if you go to the London Marathon, the Expo's open from Wednesday through to the Saturday, but the Expo here is only open on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for the race. So you really got to make sure that you plan your packet pickup, and it's open from 10 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 in the evening. The Expo itself only closes at 9, but I think you have to have picked up your packet by 8:30 in the evening. On the Saturday, 10 till 5:30, so it closes slightly earlier. But also, like all the other majors, there's no packet pickup on the day. There's no bib pickup, and you have to get your own. You have to go and pick up your own bib, and you have to make sure that you've got your ID with you as well, because they're really, really strict on that, making sure they do check. I have been to so many races this year, including Valencia, where they just didn't even care. They said, "Do you need to see my ID?" And they went, "No." I was like, "Okay." But the majors, because of all the there are people who sort of like duplicate bibs and stuff. Because there's a bit of fraud around that, they're very, very strict on making sure you've got your ID and you can pick up. London is the only one where you can nominate somebody else to pick up your bib for you. And Tokyo, you definitely have to get your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, like Japan are stickler for rules. It is a big part of respecting their cultures. If they put it as a rule, like I'd like to think we'll respect rules wherever we go, but especially in Japan, like it's heavily frowned upon. You're gonna cause some offense, and also they're just not gonna let these rules slip for the marathon. They're very, very firm.
Exactly.
Again, that's not to be fearful of. I actually think it's like clear communication. That's that. Stick to the rules. So we actually had a question on our YouTube video of our last Tokyo Marathon episode from 5128 Goldenrod, and he said, "Great video, guys. My 6th star is happening in 34 days at Tokyo. The question was, when is the ideal time to get the Expo done? I don't care about merch. I have what I need ordered. Is it first thing Thursday I should go? Late morning before it closes? I don't want to be on my feet for 4 hours is all." I'll let you share your thoughts on this, Yumi, and then I've got some thoughts as well.
Look, I think the answer to the question is, if you don't care about merch, right, then you can go on any of those days. And I would try and go maybe in the evenings when it's typically a bit quieter. I mean, there's always the merch magpies who go rushing off there on day one. And I'd love to hear your experience, because when I went, obviously there were the added complexities of COVID restrictions and COVID health tests that we had to do. You will have hopefully had none of that, but there were still lots and lots of queues, and you are standing around for quite some time. And as we mentioned last time, there's the sort of bib pickup place on one level, and you go downstairs to the main event where all the stalls and the stands are. But there was quite a lot of standing around. So I would maybe go in like either really, really early in the morning or late in the evening. And if it's anything like the Berlin Marathon packet pickup, you go in the evening and most people have already spent the day there and they've gone. So maybe that's a strategy to take. If you into the merch, then you've kind of got to get there on day one, because, I heard again this year, as there was the year I did it, so many people were were actually taking loads and loads of clothes off shelves and stuff and selling on the secondary market, which I found a bit sad, really.
Yeah.
But if you're not really bothered about that at all, then go in the early morning or late in the evening, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely have stuff I'll say on the merch in a little bit. But in answer to this question in particular, I think, like Yimi said, like you are going to be on your feet quite a bit. There is a lot of standing. So personally, I would actually advise you to go on the Thursday because you're not going to avoid the standing. So actually further away from the race, if that's what you're concerned about, I would actually do
Good
that
point.
earlier in. However, again, like the evening's not a bad shout. People get there pretty early. I think I went first thing maybe on, I can't remember whether it was the Thursday or the Friday. There was a bit of a queue to get in. Now, I'll be honest, I'm going to be really honest about this experience here, but I don't want people to stress about it because there's literally nothing you can do. But my experience the year I went, it was very much Russian roulette, depending on what desk number you got. So
Wow.
to put this into the picture, I was in the queue to get into the building with a lovely guy called Chris, who like tapped me on the shoulder because he's listened to the podcast. Once we got there, and you've got all of the numbered desks, you have to go off in your own little line to the desk. I was number 10. It took me, I think, 10 minutes to get my bib. I saw Chris later in the day. He was number 3, I think, something like that. It took him 2 hours.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's one of those things. I'm hoping that's something that has been improved there because I don't want people listening to this and stressing out already because your number's going to be your number. I don't want you thinking, oh my goodness, I've got number 3. This is what it's going to be like for me. But I'm saying that in advance just to be aware of it. And what I would say, if you're taking people with you and you're meeting friends the other side, let them know that there could be a real variance on time. Because as I say, mine took 10 minutes. If you were a lower number, it really did take a long time.
And if I remember rightly, you have to go to a dedicated desk for your actual bib. So it's not like Berlin and Chicago, Chicago you did, Berlin and London, where you just go to any desk and they live print your bib for you. In Tokyo and finally in Boston, you had to go to an allocated desk. I think the only place where I've seen an allocated desk work really, really efficiently, Chicago. Remember, we had that great experience.
Yeah,
and when I ran it again last year, in 2024, again, it was exactly the same. It was brilliant. But this one, and you just got to be prepared for the wait. I think it's hit and miss as to whether or not it's going to move quickly or move slowly.
Exactly. So I don't say that to stress people out. I just want to be really honest. And I say, who knows? There are a lot of things that I'd hoped and again, a lot of this is going to be our personal experience. From our experience of the majors we've done, this was the worst organized expo for me.
Wow.
Which is so confusing because I would say, like, the Japanese, it was an absolute masterclass, the Tokyo Marathon, I think, in efficiency in terms of the marathon itself. There's a few things like the toilets we'll talk about, but I thought it was so well and seamlessly done. I could not understand what was happening with the Expo. It was just, I found it a lot more complicated than it needed to be and just not efficient. And I say that not to put it down. I say that actually, I think it's because Tokyo sets such a high bar in standard and efficiency. I think it wasn't a terrible expo by any means, but because they are so efficient everywhere else, I really noticed the difference at the expo. It felt like something was missing. I couldn't understand why it didn't have the same flow. So there's a queue coming in, or at least, as I say, I was there when it opened, so we had a bit more of a queue. When you get to the desks, in my experience last year, it really was Russian roulette, and there's nothing you can do about it. As I say, the lower numbers, a lot more of a queue. The higher numbers. Now, again, like, I'm sure there was a lot of feedback on it. It could be a completely different experience this year, but if you are going with people, you're planning your day, just be aware of that and time in that stuff for that. Like, as I say, 10 minutes for me, 2 hours for someone else. So a real big difference. Now, the sponsor is ASICS. And when it came to, I'm someone that I never really get the merch. I've got a beautiful New York jacket. If you've ever listened to the New York episode that my wonderful friend Yimi bought me, Other than that, I've never got the merch. So I just kind of, I'm in and out, quite happy. I'm spending the time chatting to people. I was outside this experience. The queue on the day that I went was at least 2 hours to get into the merch store leaping round.
Yeah.
And I have never heard anything like it. Like people were fighting, they were trampling over each other, there was stuff on the floor. Really disappointing because, as I said, one of my main words to sum up the experience was thoughtful. It was not thoughtful in the marathon store. So, if I can give you any advice, if you are able to order stuff in advance to your hotel, I would just do that because it's going to save you a lot of time. I talked about this a lot in my big episode about my feedback from the race. I really do hope that the organizers take it on board and have different rules around that. I personally, again, whether people, this might be controversial, I don't understand why there isn't a rule that you can only have one of each item of clothing. Like you don't
Yeah.
need 5 jackets, you really don't.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people were sending their families in, and the family members were grabbing loads and stuff as well. It's not the camaraderie that we expect from running, and that was really disappointing to hear about that. I think it really put a damper on the Expo experience for people.
I was listening to another podcast on this and doing some reading on this, and it had somebody who was a Japanese person giving the Japanese perspective. I remember saying this on the last episode where I said, look, Chicago didn't make much effort with their merch, with their apparel, because Nike were the sponsor. Nike only sponsor one major marathon, and that's Chicago. But actually, it was not the fact that ASICS didn't want to make the effort. It was probably more due to the fact that Japanese culture doesn't like waste.
Yeah.
So they only produce the minimal amount of merchandise. But I agree with you, Meg. I mean, why there aren't any rules around limiting the amount of stock people were buying? I was reading up on the Tokyo Marathon Facebook group how they saw people going in and literally lifting off a whole stack of T-shirts. They didn't care what sizes they were, but the people were lifting off a whole stack of T-shirts and just buying them. And it was like, well, hang on a sec. I hope that they weren't like, I think actually there was a bit of selling of these things on the secondary market on eBay and stuff. But I think that's just really, really sad because you want something. I like having merchandise. I like having something just commemorate a run. And if it's only just a T-shirt, I haven't got a jacket for every single race. Yeah. Might be surprised to know that I actually don't have a London Marathon jacket.
What?
Yeah. You know what? No, you know what it is? It's because every year I don't get the ballot. I get the free jacket. And it's got the London Marathon logo on. So why do I need to go and spend £120 on a jacket? However, I think the merchandisers are getting a little bit more commercial with these things. So you never know. They might produce more this year. Don't know.
Exactly. So that's why I really do try and put emphasis on, we are sharing our experience from our year. So there's lots, like, as we literally open the episode, Yimmy's year, completely different experience to my year. You might have a completely different experience. All we can do is share our experience and then also give tips around that. So like I said, I want you to have the best experience. So does Yimmy. That's why we do these episodes. I don't want you going into the expo feeling stressed, being like, oh my goodness, I've got desk number 3. It's going to take me 2 hours. We don't know. All I can say is the experience I had and just be aware of these things. And hopefully let you think like we are all humans interacting, right? So if you are planning to go into the merch store yourself, be responsible for yourself and please do not add to the commotion, and just be respectful. And we don't need to be buying 5 or 6 jackets. And that's what I meant before. As I say, I meant it as a compliment in that the Tokyo Marathon organizers really have set the standard for efficiency and very smooth event. And they've got so many rules in place for that reason, whether people like them or not. I was so confused why there were so many rules lacking around that expo and the merchandise experience. So I hope for your sakes, anyone running this year, they have improved that and taken that on board. But that's just something to be aware of previous years. So the best way you can avoid that, if there is an option to buy merch in advance and send it to your hotel, I would try do that if you can. Around the expo itself, there are a few, it's a bit ways out, so you're kind of in like the Docklands area. Another cool thing of Japan is that, again, how well they've thought out everything. They've sort of placed things all in the same area. So like in the Docklands area is all kind of the entertainment side of things, like their big concert halls and the expo, etc. So around the expo area itself, there are a few convenience stores. There's a McDonald's, from what I remember, and a few little restaurants. So that's just something to be aware of if you're going there for the day. And then anything else about the expo before we move on to that, to the next thing, Yumi?
Probably killed the expo. Let's talk about the race.
I think so, indeed. And before the race, just quickly though, we have usually Shakeout Run Day, which is on the Saturday. For Tokyo Marathon, there is a 5 km friendship run. I believe that usually sells out quite quickly. Interestingly, with the
It's sold out.
Yeah, I think it's one of the fastest to sell out, actually. You're very lucky if you got it. What's interesting about that 5 km run, though, is they do it in 3 groups with quite varied times. So group 1's 9 till 11, group 2 10:30 to 12:30, group 3 12 to 2. So again, it's already sold out if you're going to do it this year, but if you're listening and you run it in a future year, that's something to look out for. But what I would say, it's probably the most shakeout runs that are available for a race. There's so many pop-up shakeout runs you could do. Best place to look is actually the Tokyo Marathon Facebook page. You'll see lots of people, usually a few days before, saying, hey, where are these runs? There's a lot of official ones. I actually even did organized my own shakeout run with podcast listeners and clients. We had a lot of fun. We went to Chuo Park, which is right near the marathon start line. We wanted to do a little recce the day before of where we were going. So that's something to think about with the shakeout runs. And then before we get into the race itself, I want to mention something. This is a little bit of the coaching me about the weather. Now, my experience from last year was I was noticing so many people that were getting really stressed out about the weather forecasts about a week or so before the event. Now, what I'll say, it's always good to be prepared for different weathers, right? Know what, if it's hot, what are you going to wear? If it's going to be windy, have you practiced and know what you're going to wear? Same with the rain. But please do not stress out about it. I experienced a lot of people last year, literally every single day, checking the weather app and then really getting themselves winding themselves up about it and getting stressed about, oh my goodness, now it's going to be this on the day. Especially in somewhere like Japan, the weather really can change from day to day. So if there's anything from just a coach tip from me, is it's good to be prepared. It's good to know what you're doing, but please don't spoil your experience by getting too zoned in on the weather app every day, because it probably can change beforehand. So just be prepared. Anything else you want to add on that, Yumi?
I mean, you know me, Meg. I mean, I have a standing joke with David H on this. We've spent a good sort of half an hour messaging each other the other night about Sydney, because we've both booked to go to Sydney. And as soon as we finished talking about the race and logistics and stuff, he pings me with, so what's the weather going to be like? Because he knows that my paranoia thing is the weather, and I'm less stressy about it these days. I do think about it a lot, but I've just come to the point where actually, you know what? I ran Boston in the pouring rain, and London a week later was about the same weather. It just came over from Boston. I know that you've got this thing where every race you run turns into a heat wave.
Yep, same for Tokyo.
I've had the whole mix, right? And I would just advise you just to be prepared and have layers that you don't mind, you mind taking off. I mean, for my Tokyo race, I ran in shorts. I had a base layer t-shirt on, and I also had the sleeves as well. So I was basically like wearing a long sleeve. And if it would have gotten too hot, I would have just rolled the sleeves off and just put them in my pocket or handed them to, you know, a cheer point or whatever. Tokyo, you do have to be careful that you don't litter and throw things around on the floor. That's one thing we mentioned last time, and I'd mention again this time. You know, you can't just cast things off. It's not like, remember in Chicago where there was debris everywhere. This year, same thing again. Same thing again. Debris everywhere. None of that in Tokyo because they're so paranoid about people littering that they have people with bags collecting old and wanted gear. So you could actually take layers off and cast them off and make sure you put those in those recycle bags. But I don't stress about it anymore because I think as long as you're prepared mentally for any outcome, have layers with you that you can layer up, layer down. I always take a cooling scarf, cooling towel, which is a microfiber thing. If it's cold, I can wear it as a scarf to keep warm. If it's hot, I can get it wet and give it a flick, and then it's like cold. So having those options, I think it's just part of your preparation for the race.
For sure. A tip I give my clients when you are feeling out of control, right, which you can with like the weather, when you notice what feels out of control. You cannot control the weather, right? So for me to go like, Yimi, you can't control the weather, focus what's in your control. You'd be like, that's great, Meg, but I've just told you I'm out of control, right? A better way of looking at it could be, look at what's out of your control and focus on what's in your influence, right? That an example would be, you can't control the traffic, but you could have influence on your journey and how you choose to spend it. Same with the Tokyo Marathon and the weather, right? The weather is out of your control, but look about what you can influence in terms of what you wear and the experience. So
yeah, exactly.
That's just a little tip there. So look at your circle of influence when it comes to stuff like that. Paranoia, I bring it up because I just know a lot of people were stressing last year, and you're not on your own. It's a real worry when it comes up, and it can feel very isolating and panic, and I want you to have the best trip ever. So just focus on what's in your influence with the stuff that's out of your control. Now, getting to the race itself, the start line is by the government building, and we talked about this for Yimi's race, but I experienced the same thing. The race really does pop up pretty much in the morning. I've never experienced that. You go to other majors and they're like, you start throughout the week, especially London, because we lived there. You start seeing, you know, the barriers come up in the week and be delivered. Tokyo, zero signs of it until pretty much the morning of. I don't know how.
I was there with James the day before, walking around like a couple of plebs, like looking for the start line. And we walked past it like 8 times. And I'm looking at this thing going like, there's the Tokyo Metropolitan Government building right there. And we walked underneath, you know, there's that wall crossover, that bridge that has Tokyo Marathon. Yeah, exactly. There's like a Tokyo Marathon thing. And there wasn't even the Tokyo Marathon banners up on the day before. And like the Sunday morning, they built the start line. And then by Sunday afternoon, they'd taken it down before the race had even finished. It was like, it was almost like, as I said last time, it's like they don't want the mess. They don't like that mess and mayhem caused by, you know, 37,500 runners queuing up. So it just appears out of nowhere. But it does start in the Metropolitan Government building. You will see it, and if you get there the day before, there's no sign of this blooming thing. No. But it's, super efficient putting it up the next morning. Though.
Yeah, you won't miss it on the day. That's the important thing. Yeah. My experience of it last year, really, really easy, super quick to get in, very efficient. Again, like, the rules can be frustrating and a little confusing. I know I said earlier that they communicate things well. I mean, they are enforceful with their communication. Sometimes the communication can be a little bit confusing. I know when people got the handbooks last year, there was a lot of stress around things. But when you get there, it's very, very clear. And as I say, really quick to get in. What I would say as well, like, lots of space. I know a lot of slow runners that were really stressed out. A client of mine got herself there as early as she possibly could because she wanted to be at the start of her wave because she was worried about timings. I got there lots of time, very casually, and I looked over to the slow, the later waves. and plenty of space. You could have easily got yourself to the front, no problem. Again, that was last year's experience, but what I would say is there's no need to stress, there's no need to rush. Lots of space, very efficient, got in nice and easy.
I would say it is quite confusing around there, so make sure I'd give it an extra 10-15 minutes just to orientate.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because you're walking around and the Google Maps is telling you you're in the right place, but you're actually one level up. So there are stairs that go down. So you do need to look out for where the different levels are. And, you know, for some start waves, they were, if it's a cool morning, and it was like 9 degrees the year I ran it in 23, everyone huddled underneath the building, and it was almost like a multi-story car park gathering, like an old rave back in the day, and they're all huddled together in like under this building. And then the organizers are very, very strict on which pen you go into, and I'm looking at my bib behind me here. It does actually say which gate, which corral you're in. There's a color on there as well. Mine says G, so they were very, very clear in terms of where you needed to go, and you couldn't get into any other waves, any other corral areas. And the reason why they do that is because the Tokyo Marathon is a rolling start. Yeah. So it's the most efficient thing. It's like these people come pouring out of nowhere, and they all end up on that start line straight, heading past the government building. And it's the way they've actually set it all out. I think thoughtful is a really, really good word, Meg, and efficient, because they get all the runners over the line in less than 1 hour. 55 minutes, I think it took the year I ran it. It was so quick. And now it has different consequences in terms of the on-race feel, which we'll get to. But everyone has the area to go to. It's all fenced off. People directing you, lots of people directing you to go to places. It's super easy.
Have you got the handbook yet?
No, the handbook's not. The handbook's not out yet.
So
and again, it's the same thing.
Super,
February comes
same
out.
as last year. Really, really late to give the handbook. Now, what I'll say, like when the handbook, you read all the rules, you can be like, oh my goodness, this is quite strict. It's definitely, I'd say, like probably the strictest out of all the major marathons. It can be something beforehand you can get a little stressed about, but hopefully, what's reassuring on the day, like the rules are enforced. But the volunteers, so friendly, so helpful. I know when you're kind of reading things in writing, you're like, oh my goodness, this is really, like, they will enforce the rules. They're not going to slip on it. However, in terms of it is like very polite, very wonderful staff, really helpful. And it was a really nice race day experience morning. I don't know how they did it your year. It's actually really cool. I've never seen it like that. Our waves actually, like, there was almost like a massive cross section. So you're in 4 different areas, and you're basically facing each other with your hand. It's pretty cool and exciting because you're seeing each other. Yeah, and then one by one they let you go. So it's actually a really cool, nice atmosphere. As your wave starts going into that main straight, there is a section with a load of bins to the side. That's your like last opportunity to take off any clothes that you want to take off that that you've put on for warmth. Again, they don't like litter, so put that in there. But what I would say is, like Jimmy, take an extra 10 minutes just to make sure that you're navigated in there.
Yeah.
But don't stress out about getting to the front of your wave. My experience is there was space and easy to do that. Staff are really friendly and helpful. And again, the thoughtfulness of people were really looking after each other there.
I mean, I remember telling you last time and you need to read the rules on this. I don't want to see what the clarification is in this year's rule book, because the year I went, they did the security check, and there was this whole thing about not taking bottles with you.
That's the big one.
And I had 2 soft flasks, and I use Tailwind. But when they inspected mine, I know somebody else got their bottles taken away from them, their handheld taken away. But I went in with my soft flasks, and it was fine. Now, have to check the rules and make sure that is fine. Apparently last year when you ran it, they clarified the rules to say you couldn't have soft flasks. But the year I got in there, the story I wanted to tell was they were so helpful that the lady wanted to pour the water into my soft flask for me. She insisted on doing it. She wouldn't let me actually pour my own water. I thought, no, I can do this, fine, thank you. And she was so insistent. But just for you, Meg, while we're talking about tailwind and nutrition, I know we'll probably talk a bit later about fueling stations. Look
Mhm.
what I found yesterday.
Pocari Sweat. I really like Pocari Sweat. So this, I'm glad that if anybody's watching the YouTube of this, Pocari Sweat is the race drink. Now this is something, it's a bit different to the other ones. So if you can get it in, like certainly in England, I don't know about America and other places, you can usually find them in some sort of like Asian stores or little convenience
Yeah.
stores. But when you get there to Japan, I would try and buy one of those bottles and try it because it is the race day sponsor. And as if you've listened to any of our podcasts before, you know, Yumi and I, one of our biggest tips is nothing new on race day.
New on
And
race
so
day.
and in terms of the fueling, it is the most different range of fuel you will be offered in a race. I was offered dole pancakes. I was offered some very fruit, etc. So I personally bought my own race day fuel. I tried
Yeah.
Pocari Sweat. I managed to find some in the UK and try some, but I also tried some when I got there. I actually really enjoyed the taste. It's like a really nice. But you're not too sure on it, right, Yumi? For me, again, this is why it's important. We all have different experiences. Yumi's not a fan. I actually thought it was really nice and refreshing.
I don't mind it. It's I would say I didn't like it. I just found it inoffensive. It's I maybe uncharitably said last time round it was like somebody'd squeezed out old Pocari's sweaty socks and added some sugar. But it has got this like sort of citrusy, salty, sweet
I'd say
sort
it's
of
kind of.
weird
I feel like I want to say grapefruit, but I don't even
grapefruit.
know it's that. But again, that's why, like, part of this is we'll share our experiences and you can have a laugh at us, but like, have your own experience. Yimmy thought it was like a squeezed out sock. I actually love that. I think it's been one of my favorite out of all of the hydration drinks for the races. So have your own experience with it. But I would suggest it's not like it's Powerade or Lucasade, something you can easily get and you might have
Yeah.
tried before. It is a different drink. So I would, if you can, try that. Now, in terms of what they were offering in fueling, like they do offer fruit like bananas and things like that. So I'd stick to what you know. I personally, right at the end, I think the last station, I took a few and had them in my hand of some of the unusual treats because I wanted to try them and have the experience. But
What'd you get? What'd you get?
I think I probably by the end it was like a crushed dole pancake, whatever that is, and then I can't remember else. It was some interesting sweet.
Did you get the plum thing? Did you get the
I
salt
might
plum
have got a
thing?
plum. There's like a salted plum. There was one of them I tried. I had it later on in my hotel. I completely forgot it. It was a little wrap sweet. I put it in and I was like, I'm so glad I did not have that in the race because it was not for me whatsoever. It was a very acquired taste. So again, do your own race, but Yimi and I's rule really is like don't try anything new on race day. So you might want to be like what I was doing, and in literally the last checkpoint, I put some in my hand so I could take it to the end and try it to be part of the race. But personally, I didn't want to take the risk early on. But you do your own race, and then I just took my own fuel and practice with Pocari Sweat. Do you want to go, Yimi, into the race details?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, it's a point-to-point race,
Yep.
although actually geographically, the finish line's not so far away from the start line. It's not like Boston where it's literally 26.2 miles between the start and the finish, and it goes in one big straight line. This race weaves around a lot. So I'll start off by saying, of all the majors, this is on the smallest footprint of the city. If you think about the loop race that is Berlin, and it's almost like a giant bat shape, and it covers quite a lot of the footprint of the city. This one weaves around quite a lot. So just bear in mind, it's a point to point. So you do start at one place. You start at the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building, and you finish around Tokyo Station, near Tokyo Station in Chiyoda City. So you start off in Shinjuku, but you end up in Chiyoda City. I'd say looking at how I managed my race strategy last time round and how I will manage it this time round, and actually being prepared for this makes so much difference. I mean, I was just reflecting before we started recording, Meg, of how New York City and how I had a really, really bad experience in 2022 when I hadn't quite even though I knew there were 5 bridges, I knew there were, sections of the course, etc., the long straights, etc. Being mentally prepared for it this time round meant I ran exactly the same course, but I enjoyed it infinitely more.
Yeah.
Right. So being prepared is the main thing.
It's that circle of influence again, right? Like, right, I know, like, I could be stressed about this information, or I could note it to my advantage. I know this is coming up, so how do I plan accordingly and make it a better race for myself?
So know a few things about the Tokyo Marathon. One, it's pretty flat.
Yeah.
Right, it's pretty flat.
Well, interestingly, like it is, and like literally geographically is. But I remember running last year, and actually, there's a lot more like deceiving gradients than you'd think, because we discussed this in that episode about how flat it was, and I was thinking, I was like, it is not as flat as he said, but it's one of those. I think it's got like deceptive flats, is what I would say. Certainly,
I think
you wouldn't be able to call them real gradients, but what I would flatter than some of the others, but there's actually a lot of slow, subtle gradients in there, is what I would say.
Yeah, having run Chicago again recently, I'd still put it on a par with Chicago actually, and there's only one bit that I remember, and I was crossing that bridge for the final time at 28 kilometers. You cross it at 20 kilometers, you cross it at 28 kilometers, and you do go over a slight. It's the camber of the bridge, and it's like going over like Tower Bridge in London. It's actually steeper than you think, but you're so fired up with all that energy and all that excitement that you just forget about it. But there was one point in the race where I did take a photo, and you could see the runners on both sides of the road, and it was like a downhill that I could actually see. So I knew there was an incline there, but it's fairly flat. It's a very fast course. But the other thing that I really, really want to point out is that 60% of this race is run in switchback, which means you will see runners going the other way. There are 4 major switchbacks on this course, and the way I would break down the course is the first 14 kilometers, just use that as the first switchback, the first turnaround point at 10 kilometers, and then you're running around until you get to the point around 14 kilometers where you hang a left. And when you hang that left, you then see runners coming the other way, and you actually haven't done a turnaround yet, but you know there's a turnaround coming up. I would say don't look for the turnaround, because the turnarounds are actually at first one's at 10 kilometers, the next one's at 19 kilometers, the third one is at 24 kilometers, and the last one, the cruelest one, is all the way at 37.5 kilometers. So when you pass that sort of like first one, you get to 14 kilometers, you hang a left, you see runners coming the other way. That's at 14 kilometers, and you're 5 kilometers away from the second turnaround point. So don't go looking for it. Instead, try and enjoy the course around you. And I've put some highlights here. Start line, because they get everyone over the line really, really quickly, the on-race feel on the day, and I'd be really interested in your thoughts on this, Meg, but it was certainly the most congested course, even though the roads are really, really wide. I remember at one point it was 6 lanes, but it was still congested because of the volume of runners who'd all crossed the start line around about the same time. It took me 9 miles to find space. I don't know what it was like for you.
I mean, I definitely agree. At the start, there is a little bit of that congestion going out, but I actually thought it cleared up relatively quickly. I was actually running, so I'm also a charity runner. That's why the whole reason I do all of these marathons, me and Yumi both run for Young Lives versus Cancer. I was running with Russ from Young Lives versus Cancer as well. And we were running together plenty of space for quite a while, actually.
Wow.
And I'd say it opened up. I can't remember exactly what mileage, but definitely earlier than 9 miles. I thought there was definitely enough space. But certainly coming out for that main straight at the start line going in, it was a little bit more. Like I remember some guy like dropped his phone, and it was like, "You're not getting that back."
Oh wow! Wow!
Just because the crowds were going, so he really had to fight to try and get back to there. Just because, again, not because anyone was being not aggressive or anything, but there was just such a big body of
volume.
People. Volume streamlining in that bit. So definitely I would say closer together than some of the other marathons, but I don't feel at any point it was stopping us getting anywhere. But definitely
Yeah.
the first mile or so, you are running pretty close. Again, I had that funny experience of I'm running along chatting with Russ, and then people were like, I recognize that voice. Like, have you done a podcast? Just because we're all so close to each other.
Together,
But then it
yeah.
opens up. So I agree with you, but maybe not to the extent of for how long.
One of the advantages doing my mile by mile dedication videos is I've got a good record of what it was like on the year I did it, and it was certainly very, very busy. But I'd say just keep your eyes open to the things around you. The course does feel very samey. I don't know if you felt that as well. Lots of stuff you get to see in terms of every now and again it's punctuated by a shrine that you'll see, the Tokyo Tower, the Sky Tree, for example, which I'll come on to in a minute, where you will find those. But I think that, certainly the scenery around you, the cleanliness of the road stays the same all the way around, right? But I found that, lots of tall buildings. Oh, it's another area of lots of tall buildings. The character might change slightly, but there's no sort of discernible differences between one area and another. Like London, you're in Charlton at the beginning, where it's actually very, very residential. Then you sort of like cut into Cutty Sark and it gets really, really busy. And then you're into sort of residential again as you run around the peninsula going out towards, then you're into like Bermondsey and it's all packed in again. So lots of variations. I didn't find that in Tokyo.
I would agree to the extent of like, I think London and New York very like up there in terms of, because you've got boroughs with those. Like that's some of the best part of that experience for those races, are that you are running in different boroughs and they all kind of have their own lease of life and atmosphere and excitement. Now you don't necessarily you definitely don't have that borough sort of like almost like block party feel in Japan, in Tokyo. However, I would say I think there was a marked difference because my year was not the silent disco. We really had lots of support. I would say it didn't feel so samey for me. Potentially,
Wow, okay.
probably because I do agree there were certain sections where you do have like a long stretch and those big buildings. It was hot the day I did it, and despite those big buildings, not much shade. However, I really didn't notice the sameness as much, if I'm honest, just because the year I did it with no COVID restrictions, there was so much going on. There was so many people dressed in costumes on the side. People were cheering and loud. There was loads of bands and music going on. There was lots of different authentic dances. And then I thought it was different. I know like there are lots of temples in Tokyo, but I thought it was really special, coming up to the different temples. Then you've got like, you do see the Sky Tree, etc. So I would agree, not on par with obviously London and New York, because each borough is almost like its own life. But I think I would be really interested, to be honest, to see your experience this year. Geographically, I thought there was enough variety, not as much as the others, but actually I think the crowds and how much variety there was with the support
kept it interesting.
Really didn't notice it much. So I'll be interested to see your take.
So, I mean, you're running through, I think it's 7 or 8 different cities. So it's different boroughs, but I'm just saying that they just felt quite samey the year I ran it. And, we did have a lot of bands and dance groups and stuff, and lots of drummers that you often see in races, which was great. Things I would point out: 6 kilometers, you run past on the left-hand side, you run through Bunkyo City, which is where there's a big dome. That's where the baseball games are played. So do look out for that. 10K is the first turnaround point, as I mentioned. The thing to look out for are, you've got the timing mats that are down, that you have to cross over, of course, every 5 kilometers, I think they are. And the course is marked in kilometers. Yeah. And the other thing to note is that the markers are actually really, really quite small as well, if I remember. So you've just pay attention to where you find the markers. And that's really helpful to do as well, particularly in Tokyo, because the other thing I would point out is that there's lots of points on the course where your GPS goes completely nuts. Yeah. And it's because of the tall buildings. And if you have got your lap button and you know how to do that, when you're running either in miles or kilometers, when you see the kilometer mark, just mark it with your watch, just to keep your watch tuned in. I think, remember last time round, I got to that 15-mile marker, and I looked at my, I run with two watches, one with kilometers and one with miles. And I looked at my mile watch and I thought, I'm 15 and a half miles in with this watch. I'm thinking, how can I be that far out? So that's one thing to look out for. 19 kilometers, you get to your first sort of like big shrine. It's the Asakusa Shrine, which is like a big temple. It's right on the turnaround. Actually, you run past, you run up to it, and you see it in the distance. Don't just be focused on where the cones finish, and there's that completely, there's a very, very sort of like simple turnaround point. It's like the road ends and everyone bunches around. Yeah. Just lift your eyes up and look in front of you, and there's that big Asakusa Shrine there. You sort of turn left into kilometer 20, and you're running down the straight. Just again look up, and it reminded me a little bit of Berlin when I didn't see the Berlin Tower. Yeah. The first year I ran it, and then I've run it, 3 times now, and the other 2 occasions since I've seen the Berlin Tower, and I think, how could I have missed that? Right, the Skytree Tower is this huge, great modern tower in Tokyo. You can't blooming miss it, and it's at 20. That stretch where you do that on 20 kilometers. So do look up and see that. 23 kilometers, you get to Tomiyoko Hachimangu. Any apologies for my pronunciation of that. There's another big shrine on the left-hand side before you then hit that switchback at 24 kilometers. That's your third switchback. And then you're then running with other runners. And this is where it can get quite confusing, because when I was running up to 14 kilometers, I actually saw, before I turned left into the first switchback, I actually saw the elites running past me on the other side. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I got later on in the race, all the people on the other side were people who were behind me. And as I said last time, really just focus on your race and be focused. Get your head into the race. Don't let the race get into your head. Don't worry about what everybody else on the other side is doing. Just think through the fact that, just accept the fact that at 24 kilometers, you hit your third switchback, the turnaround point, and then you're running for the next 8 kilometers in switchback. Yeah. Right. And then there's almost like a 2-kilometer break as you run through Ginza, which is a really, really cool area. It's like running down Oxford Street. It's a shopping area in Tokyo. It's where all the big brands are. But by this stage, you'll be hurting because you're 20 miles in. So you might not pay that much attention to it. Then you get to 34 and a half kilometers or so. And I would say of the majors, and I've actually found one experience is actually worse than this. Of the majors, this is the cruelest sign you'll see, because at 34 and a half kilometers, you'll see a sign that says 1 kilometer to go, 1 kilometer to go. And it's on the other side of the road. Yeah. And then you look down at your watch and you think, but I've still got 8 kilometers left.
Yeah, exactly.
and you run the last switchback.
Yeah. Don't get you.
I don't know what it is though, because that road felt like I was going downhill, and on the way back I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have a really big uphill to run down. But it felt like I was running downhill on the way back as well. Maybe it was just marathon brain. I don't know.
Marathon brain. Also the switchback. It's like in London, right? When you get to the switchback there, you get so excited, right? Because you've got all the spring chickens the other side, like those pro racers, and they're like gazelles going along, and you're like, oh, any minute now I'm going to be there. You've got many minutes. Many minutes. So I think that's just the switchback in the head.
I think it is. And the best thing, as I mentioned on the main episode last time, was during that switchback, you do see the Tokyo Tower on your right-hand side, the red thing that looks like the Eiffel Tower. It's actually modelled on the Eiffel Tower. Yeah. Oh, man, I had the man with the panda head. Yeah. Wow, that was
Yumi wasn't wearing a panda head, just to be clear. He if you follow Short Fat Guy runs the majors on social media, you'll find his Tokyo picture, and he's literally just got this like perfect pose, like he's actually posing and ready, and then literally a guy running as a panda next to him with the Tokyo Tower. It's like you could put him on the advertisement on the website. It was like perfect.
It was so
Over
funny. I mean,
camera.
you run down past the Tokyo Tower on the right hand side. You hit the switchback about I don't know, it's about 37.5 kilometers, I'd say. You do a turnaround and then you come back again and you're running up that road. On the way down, just look out for the photographers because they're all the way down there. I've actually done a post on the Tokyo Marathon Facebook group of, I actually worked out the timing exactly where the locations are, all those photographers, right? So check that out. It's on the Tokyo Marathon Facebook group, and it's also on my Instagram as well, I think. But you pass that, and you know that's your last turnaround point. You run past the Tokyo Tower again and the shrine on your left on your way back. You get to that 1 kilometer to go sign, and then you do a left and you're running in towards Tokyo Station. And it's the weirdest. I thought that was the weirdest bit. I did have Mike Davies the year I ran it.
Yeah,
and he says hi, by the way.
Same my year as well, because he also then ran it. So, but like, he was supporting, right?
He was supporting the year I ran it, and because he was supposed to be running it. I saw him at the National Running Show, actually. It's a big shout out to Mike. Yeah. I did take a picture, and I was meant to send it to you, but I will do.
Great guy.
But he was like shouting, "Yimmy, keep going," as I was running down that last bit. Photographers everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you keep looking for that finish line, and you think, where's the finish line?
Yeah.
Where's the finish line? And then what you don't realize is the Tokyo Station's on your right-hand side, this beautiful building that you don't even notice, because you then turn left and you're running away from the Tokyo Station. Yeah,
it's so confusing, that bit. You're like, where is the finish?
200 meters or something. Mm-hmm. When you get to that final corner, it's less than 200 meters. You turn left and there's the finish line, and it's like a bun fight. I don't know what it was like when you finished it, but it was so many people.
Getting across, like space getting across. What I would say, a really long walk post finish line, because you kind
really,
yeah, I don't know whether they changed it up, because you're finishing opposite. Is it Shinjuku Park? You're finishing opposite.
I think that's right. No, it's you see the Imperial Palace in the distance.
The Imperial Palace. That's what I meant. So you. Like Yumi said, you go past the station like, oh my goodness, because Tokyo Station, I'm here. And then you're kind of like, where is it? You do this left, then you get there. It was fine crossing the finish line, but then you're walking all the way, basically, to the Imperial Castle. And then you have to come all the way, you turn, and then you come all the way back on yourself. So then I'm literally next to the finish line. And then you turn right, and you had to walk the entire stretch down the whole avenue to then get out. So that's when then you've got, like, you turn back on yourself. That's when you've got, like, the refreshment stands, etc. And then you've got the bag pickup. But I found that was a really long. It was not.
Was it New York long?
No, well, that was the thing. I was close to it because I remember I was like, I need to speak to Yimi about it. It was a little bit close to Central Park, New York. I think Central Park was more like you're battered by that point. Definitely not Central Park levels, but I would say second in the ranking.
Wow.
Was my experience, because you finish, what you literally have to walk all the way, then all the way back next to it, and then you turn right, and then it's a really long stretch. And what I would say is really organize and know where you're meeting people, because I actually found it really difficult to come out. You've got thingies with the cell service. I actually then also you cut, because everyone's still running the race, it's really hard to get across. So you actually have to go underneath. That's the pro tip. You go underground and cross underneath to then get across to the other side. So it was a lot of walking, I found, post-finish.
Do you know what? I didn't remember it being as long, and I guess it was the advantage of having gone with sports tours. They had buses to take us to the start line, and then they had the bus service right there. But you are right. You finish, and you walk all the way along, and then you have to sort of like go back on yourself to come to the tables where the medals are. Yeah, and then there was the toweling poncho, dry robe
the towel
thing.
Poncho. You get the iconic medal. I've got that here, and then I haven't got the poncho.
Oh,
the
nice.
Towel poncho is a staple for Tokyo Marathon.
Well, I might take mine just to stay warm at the start, because I don't need two of those in my life back in my cupboard at home. But anyway, but I'm not going to take my New York orange poncho this time round.
You never know. You and Gwen could have matching. You could be in your matching Sunday Tokyo robes. Ask her,
You know,
see if she wants it.
But no, there was a little bit of a walk to get round. But I think then what's helpful for me when I did it, and I'm going to have the same this year, is going with sports tours. They have the buses that take you back to all the major hotels. So I just hopped on a bus and it was absolutely fine. I did remember doing a left turn and walking, and there was like places where they then handed out the snacks and stuff as well. So
it's like you get some water and then you get this bag.
Yeah.
I can't remember, like, some interesting goodies on there. Some sweets that I tried later on was like, oh my goodness me, not for me. But what was in there, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it came in the race pack. I can't remember whether it was Expo or there, but it was these bath crystals. They're like this luminous color. They were incredible. Lovely.
See, this is why I said last time,
don't eat them. So disclaimer, don't do a Yimmy and almost eat them. If you see these crystals, they're not jellies, they're not snacks. They are bath crystals. I thought
they were electrolytes, so strawberry flavor. And then I couldn't get my Google Translate to work.
I'm so glad you did.
It was only much later when I was back in my hotel when I scanned it and it said bath salts, and I thought,
that was close.
Lucky.
Foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
This is the saltiest drink I've ever had.
Exactly.
Fair, they are like the most luminous coloured bath salts you've ever seen. It looks like something you'd put in like a fancy drink. But I recommended those bath salts.
Oh, wow.
Are amazing. Like, highly recommend. So if you get them, use them. Don't throw them away. So yeah, good little race pack there. So just some things to mention about the race before we forget there as well. There's no blue line to follow for this.
Yeah.
Right. So
I didn't see that at
you'll
all.
be used to the majors. There's usually some form of line that you can stick to, just so you're exactly on the 26.2. No blue line here. And Yimi was right. The signs are in kilometers, but there is 1 mile marker at halfway point usually.
Yeah.
So you'll see a miler there.
I seem to remember there were actually every 5 miles there was a 5, 10, 15 mile marker, but they were only every 5 miles. The rest of the markers are all in kilometers.
Yeah, I think so. Again, we're still waiting for the handbook to come out, but aid stations usually about 2 to 3 kilometers. Water cups were around every 5 kilometers last year when I've done it. Something really big to bring up. It's kind of usually the talk of the Tokyo Marathons is the bathrooms. So don't worry, the ones on the course are Western style. You'll see in Japan there's usually a choice. You can have a Western style, like a toilet you're more used to, or you can have the toilets which are on the ground, but they are Western toilets. They are very well signposted and pretty regular. However, usually in previous years, the controversy around the toilets on the course they can be varying distances. So they really can be much further out. You take a turning to go off to the toilet and it could be much further off the road. It's not like the other majors where you're literally just going to the side. What I would say is definitely go to the bathroom beforehand, especially if you are a later start runner. I would try and get, don't burn yourself out, but try and make good progress in that first half of the race. And then again, as I say, toilets, varying degrees, pay attention to those signs and how, because the signs do tend to say how far that is. They can be a little bit.
I did see that in my videos while I was watching back on my race footage. Some of the toilets in the early parts of the race were right next to the actual course, but like a friend of mine literally ran 250 meters and by the time he'd run to the toilet and run back again, he'd added on like an extra half a kilometer, and if you have to go twice, that's adding on an extra kilometer to your race. But I did look this up.
Running down like avenues. I was like, where are they gone?
It's almost like they don't want people to see you going to the loo on the course. But I did look up something for you, Meg, which I'm hopefully going to be able to show you. Anyone who's on the YouTube will be able to see this. There's this sign.
Signage, I agree, in Japan,
showing you how to use a Western toilet. Which I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's the culture, right? So you need to be aware that not everyone in Tokyo and Japan uses Western style toilets. So there are some instructions. We all laugh about it a little bit, but as I said, maybe slightly uncharitably last time, saying, you know, if you don't know how to use a Western toilet by now, maybe you've got bigger problems. But I think for the majority of us that are traveling from overseas, we should know how to use a toilet without instruction.
Yeah, but pay attention to the instructions out there, and also say very funny signs. My favorite one that I found in, I think it was a bathroom. It was near Shinjuku, maybe. Actually, I think it was like in the main square in Tokyo. But in the bathroom, there was a signpost saying that if you spend too long in the toilet, the emergency rescue team will come. And I was like, incredible. And then also, it was one of those things like this shows you how my brain works. I was like, well, how long is too long a time? How do we test this? Right. So anyone there who's used to, getting the phone out in the local toilets, just be aware of the signposts, because if you're in a toilet that takes too long, the emergency rescue team might come and get you. So be quick with your number twos. Don't wait around in some of those toilets. And what I will say, the cleanest toilets I've seen on a marathon course. So that's a luxury there.
Yeah.
And then post race, as I said, I'd say meeting points, make sure you've got a real plan of where you are meeting your loved ones if they're coming out, just because again, there's going to be high traffic for signal in that in that place. You've also got high-rise buildings, and again, the race is still going on, so often going underground is the way to go there. We won't go too much about it because we spoke about it in previous episodes, but you do have the red balloon people. So if you are at a cutoff for the race, then you have like the red balloon guys will come across. I didn't actually see them myself, but you saw them, didn't you, in your year?
I saw them. They were very real. They were there. I mean, there are 9 checkpoints, and it is like that game of Outrun, those video games you played in the 80s, where you had to run through the checkpoint with enough time so that you could actually pass through if you got there too late. I mean, I saw them at one stage when I was running the Switchback, and the balloon guys had got to the checkpoint, and they closed the course. They literally dragged the cones right across the course. But a lot of people, we're not going to talk too much about it because we've already talked at length about it. I know you did a separate episode about this, but I would say just to be clear, if you can run a 6-hour marathon, don't stress about it at all. Right, be at the start of your pen. It's people spend too much time worrying about the cutoff times. I had a friend of mine who did the UTMB race, the Arc of Attrition, this weekend, and she said it's a bit like that, where you've just got to get through the checkpoints in time, and if you can comfortably run a 6-hour marathon, you've got nothing to worry about.
100%. And as I say, I did a whole episode on that. I believe it's 150. So if you're particularly stressed about, have a listen. We also do go into detail in episodes 138 on that as well. But just wanted to touch on it today. So to finish off, we will mention a little bit about sightseeing and food tips. Yimi should have been on commission last year. He'd said about, I believe, Salvatore Cuomo and Bar, which is a pizza chain restaurant. Again, Japan, so much amazing food out there, incredible culture. But if you're wanting to carb load and stick to stuff that you're used to having your pizza and pasta, Salvatore Cuomo and Bar is good to use for. Now, I did take one for the team here. There is actually a load of these restaurants across the city. So it isn't just one. I'll try and find the same link as last time and put that again in the episode description. As always with these majors, and you're in a city with everyone coming to the marathon that weekend, do book in advance, especially because a lot of Japanese restaurants are a lot smaller and don't take as many bookings, so book in advance. And I would say, if you can't, this is a big tip, because I went to one of the Salvatores. Me and my mum took about an hour to find it. We were on Google Maps and we were like, where is it? We were going around, we were looking, and actually our one was underground. So that is actually around Tokyo. You won't realize there is a lot of underground spaces with shopping and restaurants. So if you're on Google Maps and you're trying to find one, it's probably beneath you.
And also high-rise buildings. I found the same in Hong Kong as well. And Tokyo is very similar, where you've got to get into a high-rise building. You go to like 12th floor or something, and it's like suddenly there's this restaurant there, and it feels really, really random, because as maybe as Westerners, you kind of expect to see, restaurants at street level, and you can, they advertise for passing traffic, but because everything's so compressed, you do have to have your wits about you. The other thing to note that I noted was a lot of Japanese restaurants close fairly early.
Yeah, definitely.
So make sure,
before the marathon.
yeah. So as we always say to marathon runners, especially where you're traveling overseas and you're going to somewhere unfamiliar, is always have a plan to go eat something familiar. Boring is probably best.
Yeah.
Nothing too exotic. Try all the food afterwards, by all means. I mean, I'm a dustbin. I eat anything. So, I know that my pre-race, I'm going to have one thing, and post-race, I'm definitely up for some ramen.
Yes, I went for ramen with Russ and his friend. Really amazing ramen. And there's so many ramen places.
Best recovery meal ever, because it's got the protein, it's got the carbs, it's got the salt, it's got it's got the soup, so you've got the hydration as well. It's the complete recovery meal, so definitely do that. And there's loads of places. Nowhere does a bad ramen in Tokyo, so no,
exactly. So in terms of just like a chain that we know well, there's quite a few of them, so it's an easy suggestion for us, is that Salvatore Cromo and Bar, a mix of pizza and pasta. I stuck to what I know beforehand. As soon as the race was over, I was really enjoying the Japanese culture and just going for it, so would definitely recommend that. There is also like places like Skytree, etc. There's actually lots of like indoor food halls as well with lots of different things. I was so excited to see there was a Strawberry Mania there. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Yimmy. Strawberry Mania, it's like it's almost like a dessert store, like as it says, like centered around strawberries, but the most amazing little like strawberry cheesecake dessert, etc. So
wow,
at the Skytree, if you're going to see it, there is the shopping bit and there's lots of food places there. If you come across the Strawberry Mania, there's one just off the main strip in Osaka as well. Really, that was one of my favorite places to go, just as like a nice sweet treat. If you're in the Shinjuku area, me and my mum went to a pizza place called Rise Mize. Really tiny, lovely little pizza place. They play the sport on there. Really great staff. Again, not getting anything to recommend it. I just really loved it as a local place. But what you'll find, a lot of the restaurants like that are small don't take reservations and are very tiny. So that's why we're suggesting somewhere like Salvatore, because you can book in advance. But just be aware, if you've looked up some places and you're keen to try, a lot of them are very small. Like Rise Mize, I think had about 3 tables. And like we say, they do close a little bit earlier. In terms of sightseeing, again, I go into massive detail in my sightseeing episode. One thing that I want to say about, if you've listened to our older Tokyo Marathon episode, Yumi had an amazing suggestion about Medal Monday and the Starbucks. Unfortunately, last year that Starbucks was no more at Shinjuku Crossing, and funnily enough, I was stood there with my mum looking for it, and I was like, where is it myself? And this was on the Sunday because we were getting the Shinkansen the next day. And then there's these ladies next to us, these American ladies, going like, well, I'm sure he said it was here. And I saw my ears are perked up and my mum's looking. And then she was like, he said it was here. And she said, yeah, it was on the podcast. And then she just turned around and was like, oh my God, because me stood there and she was like, you'd said about it, like you and Yimmy, and they were like, oh, your podcast. So literally I was with people in live time trying to find Starbucks, but unfortunately it was under construction and no longer there. Whether it's coming back, I don't know.
I'll have to look out for it this year.
What I would say is Shinjuku Crossing is still a great place to have your Medal Monday picture. Try it. There are various little coffee shops and things where you can try and get higher and have that picture. It's what they call the Sakura. It's close to Sakura season, which is their blossom season. That usually happens in April, and tons of people flock to see. March is a bit too early.
It's a month too early, yeah.
But what I would say when I was there last year is actually some of the local parks did have a flock of blossoms, and there was the one, like lots of people were going to this one park to try and get pictures of the blossoms. So keep an eye on the Facebook group because people are quite useful in saying, and you can get your medal Monday. The one that everybody missed is right outside the Skytree shopping area was a beautiful blossom tree, and you can get the sky tree in the background and the blossoms. So that is a suggestion from me if you want a Japanese photo. But we won't go into much more, but do listen to that main episode that I did on the sightseeing, because I even say about the government building you can go up for free, and I've even told you the exact time where you could go and catch the sunset, etc. So give that a listen. Anything else you wanted to add there?
No, it's ended up being a long episode after all.
It has. We were like, oh, short and sweet. It's been sweet. It hasn't been short. But hopefully,
I
again,
think
we want to do this stuff to give as much detail as we can and just give people the best experience we can, right, Yumi?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Good luck to anyone doing it. I'll see you out there. I'm getting in there on I'm getting into Tokyo on the Tuesday. I'll spend a couple of days in Osaka and Kyoto, and then come back to Tokyo for the marathon for the Friday and the Saturday. So if you see me around, one thing I'm definitely going to sign up for, Meg, is I'm going to do the real life Mario Kart. So I know I'm going to. That sounds like it's a lot of fun.
Yes,
I'm going to do it on the Friday
by the way,
evening.
that's a top tip that I have to do. I did everything I wanted to do in Japan, but I missed out on the Mario Kart because I didn't realize you actually have to buy a special license.
An international driver's license.
Usually it's from somewhere like the post office, but you have to buy an international license before you go. And as we said, Japan it's illegal. They will not break the rules. So I was really sad last year. I got there and didn't have this license, so I couldn't do it. So definitely let us know what your experience is there. I know Mike did it last year. Mike Davies, he did that as well. So you can do real life Mario Kart, but you've got to get that international license in the UK. You can't get it out.
It costs £5.50, and it's on the government.gov.uk website. Was where I'm just looking it up.
Don't be a Meg and miss out on a £5.50 license. You've got to buy it in the UK. You can't buy it in Japan.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, actually, because I was gutted. So that would be a top tip. And I say, listen to that big episode. But what I will say is one of my favorite things I did out there was Tokyo Labs, and that is actually down nearer that Docklands area. I couldn't have recommended that enough. That was a really, really cool experience if you want to check out that as well. But yeah, that is it for today. Please do send in any questions you have our way, any feedback. Let us know what your experience was like, and if you do see Yimi around, please do come give him a hug. Come speak to him. We really, really do love to get to know who's listening to the podcast and hear your stories as well. And we will be back very soon for another major marathon episode. And have a look in the episode description where we will put as many of the links as we can for things we mentioned. But thank you so much, Yumi, for your time. I always appreciate it. And have the best race. I am hoping you are getting upgraded from silent disco to just plain DISCO.
Do you know what? I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I love Japan. Love the culture there. Love the food there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know there's some great people going out with the Sports Tours group as well this time round. I know there's a few charity places. I got a charity place this year.
Amazing.
So, if people want to come and ask me about charity places and stuff, feel free to ask. I won't spend time on it now, but yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. But yeah, I'll see you out in Japan.
See you then.